All right, so I'm going to search for Lambda. And I think the region that we used was London. Let's see. I don't know if we used London. Do you guys remember which region we used? Let me see the chat. I don't remember which region we used, but maybe we used. Okay, so maybe it was print hello. Let's see. Yeah, so that's actually what we did, guys. So we created this function called print hello, and the runtime is Python 3.7. The architecture is this. So when you create a function, so let me go back to functions. You can create a function here, and you can create a function from scratch, and that's really what I typically do. And you can give your function a name. So for example, get temp, and you would pick your runtime. So 3.8, Python 3.0 is fine. This is a new architecture, by the way, ARM. When I say new, I mean kind of a new addition to AWS Lambda. It didn't exist before. So it used to be only Intel. And I actually tested this one a few days ago. And it's not particularly much faster, although they say that it should be faster. I think it's close. I mean, the speed is similar, but it'll be cheaper. So it's overall for my use case, which I don't need to kind of talk about now for, its ARM was better because it's 20% cheaper. So in terms of speed, they were very similar. So anywho, you pick the architecture here, and you can keep everything default, and you create your function, and then you can write code. So it's taking a second, and that's get temp. You can write code here, and you can test it, or rather deploy it and test it. I'm going to go back to my other function, which is print hello. All right, guys. So the idea here is to kind of get some data, either by scraping or by accessing APIs. And then maybe we can do some processing on the data. Here, I'm just simply accessing the dictionary. So when you do result.json, it'll actually it'll take the JSON, which is a text that is in some format, some notation, and convert it to a dictionary. So this, when you do result.json, it'll take again the text, and it'll convert it to a dictionary. So the type of this one is dictionary. So I think I may have done that. So if I say print the type of results.json, just to see kind of the type of object, this kind of object, and I can deploy it, and I can test it, and it'll say, let's see, oh, it should be result. Why did I do requests? All right, so I'm going to deploy again, and I'm going to test, and you can see that it says the type is dictionary. So this is really essentially a dictionary, and I'm accessing the dictionary using the square bracket notation. And that will give me the temperature. And as you can see, the temperature is 44 in Charlotte. And so that's kind of chilly. Do you guys have any questions about anything here? Let me open the chat window, participants. Do you guys have any questions about this? All right, so let's continue. We don't have kind of too much time today. Of course, I don't want to rush things. So if you have questions, just feel free to ask me. So here, for me to save the data into kind of a database, I can use, for me to use Django's object relational mapper, I have to have Django kind of installed. And I don't want to do that. I don't want to install Django on AWS Lambda. It's kind of an overkill. So instead, I want to use another package that uses SQL, kind of pure SQL, instead of kind of an object relational mapper like Django's. And for me to access a Postgres database through Python, I would have to import a package that you've actually had to install for Django. It's called PSYCOPG2. So I'm not sure if you remember that, but we did actually have to install this one, or the binaries version of this one, for Django project, because Django uses the Django project that we had used Postgres, and it needed this kind of package to convert the object relational mapper to pure SQL and execute it. So let me see if that's going to work, because I have a feeling that this doesn't come by default with my Lambda. So I'm going to deploy, essentially save, and then test. You can see here that it did not like that. It says no module name PSYCOPG2. So this does not exist, doesn't come with Lambda. And that's kind of problematic, because I do need this package to interact with the Postgres database. So for me to install a package into a Lambda, there are kind of many ways of doing it. But the best way takes a little bit of time to set up. And that's really what I want to talk about today. It's actually a pretty good way, but it just takes a little bit of time at the beginning. That's what we're going to do now. So there are ways to kind of create Lambda functions. One of them is the way that I showed you, which is to kind of, go to the web interface, then go to Lambda, then functions, and create your function. But there's another way of doing that, and that would be through the terminal, through your terminal. And I'm going to show you how to do that. So through the terminal, we're going to actually create a function, and it'll be much easier to install packages using that way. So Blake is asking, is there a way to see what packages come with Lambda? Yeah, I'm sure there is a way. That's a good question. Let's try to kind of do that. I'm going to actually look that up, because what we should ask for, what we should Google, is kind of print packages in kind of Python shell. So let's see. Yeah, I'm not seeing anything now. Let me look into it, and maybe next week we can try to do that. There should be a way, I'm sure. Like someone says you can do this, help modules. I don't know if that's gonna do it. Let me go here. Someone says you can do this, kind of print. I don't know if that'll do it. That doesn't look, well, let's try it. Let's deploy, and let's get rid of this one, because that's giving us an error. Let's deploy and test. Yeah, did it do anything? No, it didn't work. Although it did actually, it seems that it was working, but it timed out. So let's increase the time, because the timeout here is 3 seconds by default. That's interesting. Maybe that's how we do it. Let's do it 20. Save, and let me go to test, or rather code. This. And let me try to test again. Okay, so you can see it seems that it does display something. Let's see. Is that everything? I'm trying to kind of look at them and see. So we have requests here, but we should have more, I think. Like some of them I don't see here. Yeah, I mean, maybe that gives you, I mean, sub-process, that's a package. Date time, that's a package. Yeah. Yeah, I don't see all of them though. But it seems that that gives you, I mean, maybe that does give you pretty much the packages that you have. Maybe not every single one of them. Because I'm pretty sure that we have Boto 3. So if you kind of go here and say import Boto 3, that's one of the packages. So if I deploy and test, it's not going to complain about Boto 3. So it does, we do have Boto 3, but I didn't see it in the list. So do you guys see Boto 3? Yeah, I don't see it. So maybe that shows you the packages for the most part. Maybe some of them are not displayed, but that's a good, actually, it's a good command. I didn't know about this command. All right, guys. So I'm going to open my terminal and I'm going to show you how you can create kind of Lambda functions from your terminal. So let me navigate to this course folder, and then I'll share my terminal. All right, I think I'm going to share, the best thing to do would be to share the entire window. All right, do you guys see my window? All right, so for you to use the terminal to create Lambda functions, you need to install two things. One of them is called AWS CLI, and the other one is called AWS SAM CLI. So I'm gonna Google them just to kind of show you. So the AWS command line interface CLI is just a simple package that allows you to do things like this: AWS something in your terminal. So I can do AWS help or something else, of course. So it allows me to write commands that start with AWS, and the AWS SAM CLI. I guess you can pick your operating system. Once you do that, it'll allow you to do something that looks like, I don't see it here, but essentially SAM. So you can do SAM then followed by something. So these two commands, SAM and AWS, you need to make sure that you have them. So if I hit SAM, it says that that kind of exists. So this is the serverless application model. So again, I have AWS, and I also have, you can see AWS is here. I do have it. It says just, you have to use it the right way. And I also have SAM. If I do something that doesn't exist, the SSS, it'll tell me command not found. So because of AWS, because I have something for AWS and also SAM, then that means they're installed. Okay, guys, so let me show you where I am. There's nothing in my folder. Let me pwd. I'm inside a folder with the name Lambdas. And here is where I want to, again, write the code that will create my Lambda. Sweat, do you have a question?
Yes, Professor. So for the AWS and the SAM, like, do we need to install those on our computers or no?
Yeah, if you want to practice, I mean, if you want, and you probably should, you should for many reasons. One of them, it's good because you want to practice the stuff that you learn in the courses that that you take. But also, the more you practice, the easier it'll be to answer questions in the quizzes and exams. So yes, I would say you should do that.
And how would we like install those two? Like,
It's pretty easy. I mean, if you kind of look up AWS CLI or AWS command line interface, it'll tell you, for example, for Windows, you want to click here. For Mac, you want to download this one. It's just like downloading anything pretty much. And once you download it, you should be able to use it.
okay, thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. Yeah, so Anthony's saying the name. So the name is, one of them is AWS command line interface, and the other one is SAM, AWS SAM command line interface. So these are the two. No, you don't do pip. So Anthony's asking about pip. No, you don't do pip because these are not Python packages. These are kind of command line packages. So they're for the terminal and for for your maybe Windows command prompt. So they're more like Python than what packages we use. I don't think we used many, but they're more like Python than Django. So Django is a package, Python is a piece of software, and they're really pieces of softwares that have an interface, a command line interface, which is kind of something through the terminal or the command prompt. All right, guys. So let me show you how you can, again, create a SAM application and the Lambda function. Again, it'll take a little bit of time, but that's okay. We'll just do it once, and you'll just know how to do it, and that's okay. So it'll be a little bit of kind of stuff here, but that's okay. So the way you do it is you start by SAM init. So that's the command that you want to do, SAM init. Essentially initialize kind of a SAM application. And then it'll give you some options here. I'm going to pick a quick start templates. That'll be actually a good idea for us for now. So I'm going to pick one and I'm going to hit enter. And here it'll ask, do you want to save it as a zip file or as an image? I'm going to also pick a zip file, which is 1. So that'll be 1, 2. And here I'm going to pick my runtime, and I'm going to do 3.8, which is number 9. You can see that we have number 9 here. So that's number 9. And then it'll ask for the name of the project. And I'm going to do SAM. I like to do SAM dash, then the name. So maybe, for example, first, let me do let's do 3160 first, let's say 00 as kind of the first project. All right, and it's gonna create something, and then here it says which template do you want to use, which quick start template, and I'm gonna pick the first one, and I'll show you what the first one is. You can kind of experiment with the other ones, but I'm gonna just go with the simplest version. Okay, so this is kind of like Django, where when you create a new project or when you add a new app, it kind of creates folders and files. It's the same thing. So if I list, right now I have a folder with this name. Before, when I listed, there wasn't anything, right? So when I listed, there wasn't anything, but now we have this folder. And of course, I can go inside this folder. What I want to do now is I want to open this folder in PyCharm just to kind of show you what we have. And then I'm going to use the PyCharm terminal, right? I like to use PyCharm terminal instead of this terminal because I can do everything in PyCharm. So let me go to PyCharm and open that folder. I'm just going to open the folder. I'm going to say file, open. You don't see that because that's on my second monitor. And I'm going to just simply pick the folder. I'm going to pick this folder 3160. Or actually, you know what I want to do? I want to open the folder that's containing 3160. So so if I pwd, you can see I have lambdas, and then inside lambdas, I have this. I'm gonna open the folder of lambdas so that if I create other lambdas, I don't have to open another folder. I can use the same PyCharm. All right, guys, so here's PyCharm, and right now I opened lambdas, which contains this folder. Now, if you open this folder, you will see that we have kind of few things here. And there is one called Hello World, which you can open it. And then there's this file called app.py. And this is where your Lambda is. So your Lambda function. So if you open this one, you can see it has def Lambda handler, which actually looks very similar to the function. If you remember, here's the Lambda function. And the function is usually in a Lambda handler. And we write the code here. It's kind of the same thing here. We have a Lambda handler with some documentation. I can get rid of all of that. And I don't need this either. And I can write my code here. So I can write my code for the Lambda here, and then I can deploy that Lambda, and it'll be deployed into, my AWS account. So I'm going to go back to functions here, and I'm going to write something very simple. So I'm going to say print simple output. And let's say that's it. Let's say this is the function. And again, guys, the reason why we're doing this, because it's much easier to install packages if you do it that way. All right, so let's say I'm done. I'm going to go to my terminal here. And let me see where I am. Okay, I'm inside Lambdas. Let me go inside this one, SAM. So I'm going to say cd SAM 316000. So of course I can list. I have some stuff here. You have to be in this folder to deploy your SAM application, which contains the Lambda. So let's say you're done and you want to deploy it. Here's what you do. You do SAM build. That's a command. And then you do SAM deploy guided. So now, of course, you can run it locally, but we don't want to do that. We want to deploy it. The whole point of using Lambdas is to have something on the cloud that's running periodically. Or maybe that I can trigger anytime. So it has to be running all the time in the cloud. So I need to deploy it. I don't want to run it locally. If I run this locally, it's very simple. It's just going to print simple output. So I do want to run it, deploy it. So I'm going to just copy this one and paste it here. And it'll give me some options. So it'll say, what is the name of the stack? I'm going to actually use the same name. So SAM 316000. Now here's asking for the region. And I want to actually install it on this region, which is London. And that's US, not US, EU, Europe, West 2. So I'm going to do that, EU West 2. So that's the name of the region. And here, I don't need to kind of confirm. So do you need to confirm changes every time you want to deploy? I can say no. By the way, when you see this means you have two options, yes and no. And when you see in uppercase, anybody knows what that means in uppercase? Why is in uppercase and why lowercase? Anybody knows why? All right, not recommended, but it's the default. So recommended is a good answer, but really it's the default. So if I hit enter without typing anything, it'll choose N for me. And N is fine. I don't need to confirm before I deploy. That's how I like to do it. So I'm going to hit enter. So allow the creation of the role. You don't need to worry too much about that. The default is yes, and I'm going to keep it as the default. Disable rollback. I'm going to actually keep it as the default. Now here it says this function may not have authorization. Do you want to go? Do you want to do it anyway? This one I want to change to yes. So I have to change the default here. And save arguments, I can do yes. So I'm going to keep it as the default. And save configuration files, yes. You don't need to worry too much about that. I'm going to keep this as the default too. All right, so right now it's going to deploy. And once it finishes deploying, I should kind of see it here, hopefully. Do you guys have any questions about this? It takes a second the first time you do this, but after that, it gets faster. So it's not a lot of work, actually. You know, I thought it's more work. It's not. You want to have, of course, AWS CLI. You want to have SAM. And once you have them, it becomes pretty simple. So Anthony's saying, how did you connect the two? The two, what, SAM and AWS?
Like the Lambdas on your account.
So
like how is it access? How is
I see. Okay, that's a good question. How does it know? For example, when we deploy, how does it know that it'll deploy to my account? And you do that after you install AWS CLI. So when you install AWS CLI, let me show you how you do that. By the way, I may have to blur some things before I post the video because I prefer not to kind of share with you kind of, I mean, my account number and all of that. It's not kind of confidential, but it's not a good practice to share this information. So I'll blur some stuff before I post the video. Or certainly on YouTube, you don't want to share any of that on YouTube. AWS may actually not like that, and they may block your account, even though it's not, again, it's not necessarily a secret key or a password. This information is not recommended to kind of share that information. So I'm going to go here. So Anthony asked a good question, which is, when you kind of download AWS, how would it know that it's connected to this kind of account? And it should tell you that, so probably the first time you try to do this, what I did, which is SAM init, SAM build, SAM deploy, if there's no account that's connected, it'll probably ask you to connect an account. So it'll probably ask you for your credentials, and you can put them just once. I think there's a command called AWS configure that you can also use. So maybe if you do AWS configure, you can configure your account. So that's another way of doing this. So I'm going to close this one. Is that good? You can try it. I think if you kind of Google a few things, it'll be simple enough. But if you have questions, feel free to kind of ask me next week, and I'll try to kind of answer them. You only do that once. So I did that probably years ago, and it's connected to the same account. Okay, guys. So I finished deploying. If I refresh here, you should see that I have a new kind of function. Now the name is not that pleasant. It's kind of starts with the SAM application, then the function name. Because I used the template, it was called Hello World. We can actually change that. That's not a problem. We shouldn't worry about this for now. I could change that. I'll change that maybe later. But let me open this, and let me show you that we have this print simple output. And the idea here is if I test it, I do need to provide kind of a simple test with this kind of just simple input. Doesn't really matter. You can give it an empty JSON if you want. I'm not really using any parameters or arguments, so we can do that. I'm going to create. If I test this, you can see that it works. It printed simple. Where did it print simple output? Here, simple output. And it worked. That's fine. It took 1.5 milliseconds. Now, of course, if I go to my function here, to my PyCharm, let me hide this one. if I try to import something, let's say import something that pycopg2, this is a package that we need. If I try to kind of save, and if I try to, again, build and deploy, then I should see that kind of here. However, that's not going to install the package quite yet. So let's do that. I'm going to go to my terminal. I'm going to right now build, so I can say SAM build. And by the way, right now, I don't have to SAM deploy guided. I can just SAM deploy. So the first time I needed to do guided, but now I can just do SAM deploy, and it'll use the same kind of answers that I provided when I did SAM deploy guided. So that's how I do it. And typically I do this SAM build and SAM deploy. So if you use and, that means gonna do this command, then do this command. So that's what I'm gonna do. It'll build again, that's okay. So right now it's kind of deploying it, right? It's deploying it, it'll take a few seconds. Okay, it seems that, well, it's still doing it. Sweat, do you have a question?
Yeah, Professor. So like, would you be posting these videos today itself or tomorrow?
So I need to, as I said, I probably need to do some edits because I need to blur some numbers here. So I don't think I can do it today. I wouldn't be able to do it today. I think best case scenario would be tomorrow evening.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. So Anthony's saying, is deploy same thing as save? No, deploy is more like upload it to the cloud. So yeah, it's more like upload it to my account, my AWS account. So I'm gonna right now refresh the page, and you will see that again I have PSYCOPG2. However, again, that's not gonna help me because if I try to test, it'll say this one doesn't exist. Do you guys see the problem here? So I still need to install it because I haven't installed it. And this is where doing this, give me 1 second, please. And this is where doing this is going to be helpful because what I can do is I can look at the requirements file and I can add the name of the package into my requirements file. So I do have requests, I can add this one. And the idea here is when you do build and deploy, the SAM kind of utility application, the SAM program that we installed is going to actually use the requirements file to install all the packages before it deploys it or uploads it to your AWS account. So that's really the idea. And again, that's really convenient because all you have to do is just add, those packages here and deploy. And in most cases, it'll work. Sometimes you'll have some issues and we can look into those. But for the most part, it'll work for you. So hopefully that'll work. And let's test it. So I just added this, the name of the package here in the requirements file. And I'm going to go to my terminal and I'm going to do build deploy, not init. You do init when you create the first one. So I'm going to do that. All right, I'm going to do SAM build, SAM deploy. Do you guys have any questions about this? Okay, so notice here that there's a problem. It says that I couldn't find PSYCOPG2. So this is actually a similar problem to the one we had before. I'm actually surprised it couldn't find PSYCOPG2. COPG2. That's interesting. So let me use I can try to get I can use the binaries. Let's do that. Let me try something else with you. Let me try to specify the exact package. Yeah, didn't like that. That's okay. Let me try to specify the exact package here. Just give me 1 second. Let me find a good package name. Good package number. Well, let me try to do binary. Let me see. Let's try to remember what kind of projects did we. Okay, let me open my other project, the project that we've been working with, and let me see what I have. So I'm going to open the Django project that we used. All right, so here it is. This is my kind of the other Django project that we used. And I'm going to go to the terminal and I'm going to do pip freeze. So I want to see kind of what kind of packages I have. So I have the binary. I don't have PSYCOPG2 at least. So let me kind of take the binary. Let me try to go here, replace that with binary. And let me try to build and deploy. All right, so that's better. It seems that it's so far so good. Okay, so far so good. So Anthony is saying, is PSYCOPG2 not a package? It's a package, but for some reason, Python doesn't find it. You know, I don't think this used to be a problem, but I think with the new kind of operating systems and the new Pythons, for some reason, PSYCOPG2 has been having issues. So yeah, but it is a package. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. And when it doesn't, you can try the binary. So we tried the binary, it kind of worked. Let me kind of refresh. So now, ideally, when I kind of, excuse me, where's my code? Okay, so notice a few things. The first one is, right now the deployment package is too large to enable inline coding. So because we had to install PSYCOPG2, the package kind of became right now larger. And because of that, the code, you can't see the code here. So it's really the same code that you see here, but right now you can't do inline editing. So you can't edit it here, which is not a problem. So I'm gonna test it and I'm gonna try to test this. Let's see. You can see here that it worked. So it actually did print simple output. It did not complain that this package doesn't exist. Do you guys see what I'm doing here? For example, let's say I want to import Twilio. Let's say I want to use Twilio. Twilio is a package that allows you to send kind of text messages from Python code. If you try to do that, and if you go to the terminal, and if you try to do kind of build and deploy, you will see that it's going to give us a problem when we try to run the code. Let me go here. So it'll complain because I haven't added Twilio to my requirements.txt. So that's the idea. That's what I want to, that's the whole point of doing this. All right, so here, if I refresh and if I test it, it's not gonna like it because it'll say, I don't know Twilio. You see that it didn't work. And it's gonna say, I don't know this thing called Twilio. However, if you go to the requirements and if you add Twilio, when you do build and deploy, it's gonna install Twilio and you can, you can run the code and it should work. That's the idea. So Anthony's saying, why can't we kind of edit requirements here? The reason why, and even if you could, it wouldn't solve the problem because you need to build your package again. So the most important part really that happens is not just adding the stuff to the requirements, but also building the whole package and installing everything. And we can't do it here. I mean, AWS decided not to allow this here. Now, there are ways where you can install packages using the web interface, but it's not practical, it's not convenient. And because of that, we tend to use this. So now if I refresh the page and if I run the code, you will see that it should work. You can see it worked. So here, when I did import Twilio, it didn't complain because I installed Twilio, right? I specified Twilio in the requirements file, which meant that Twilio needs to be installed. So that's the idea of all of this. Let me pause here and see if you guys have any questions. Do you have any questions?